Hey everybody, Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the extraordinary honor and pleasure of having yet another opportunity to catch up with a good old friend with whom we've been in touch for the last at least decade or
Oh
so,
man.
and that is George Gekas holding down the low end for the Revivalists. Yay!
Hi, Raul. How are you? Good to see you again.
Outstanding, outstanding. So, George, we're getting together. We've been talking again over the years, touch base 2016, 2018, 2023. And if anybody wants to know what we talked about, then go back and look because it's still available to you on Bass Musician Magazine. But we have fascinating news, great thing coming up. Sixth full length studio album getting ready to drop this July 24th, 2026, titled Get It Honest. So, talk to us about this very exciting project.
So yeah, this our new record titled "Get It Honest." It's a title track. It's one of the songs on the record. It was the recording process happened in Guilford, Vermont, where we did our last studio record with the same producer, Rich Costi. So it's our second effort together. The first one was done in the winter, and this one was done in the spring in Vermont at two very different times and two very different approaches to this record. It was really awesome to have a fair amount of pre-production. And we've had pre-production for records before, but not quite like this, where we spent a handful of months in New Orleans in our lab, in our studio space, really crafting songs together and getting them to the point to show a producer. And, I would say one benefit of COVID happening is that a lot of this technology that was, new at the time, Zoom calls and stuff like that, have now become such commonplace where we were able to set up a configuration where the producer Rich was able to be at his studio and listen to what we were doing, basically having a rehearsal
Mm-hmm.
and chiming in and discussing things. So, after going through about 100 songs or so, we whittled it down to about 30 or so, and we went a week before the studio to a location on the site called the Earth House, and we basically had all of us in a tiny room with little practice amps and the producer there. And we were able to pick and choose what songs made the record. We did a really interesting thing where we called speed dating, where we had 6 or 7 songs to fill, you know, 2 or 3 spots maybe on the record. And we were given an hour by the producer to work on it, get it to a point to show him, and then he would give the Roman up, down, sideways. And what was really fantastic about that speed dating is there was no time to really put emotion or ego into it. It's everybody do your job and get it to the best it can get to show him. And it's definitely a trick and a process we're going to utilize again in the future.
Nice,
Yeah, we
nice.
we had that was the pre-production. We recorded it in about 2.5, 3 weeks, and now we're at the point, almost a year removed of where we're starting to get to play a fair amount of these songs live, which was not, we're testing the waters of it, but it's been fun now that the record is done to have a live element to it and figure out the arrangements and how they're different, and we'll get some shows under their belts.
Mhm. Very nice, very nice. And with this, because that is certainly a funnel of creative stuff that ends up getting bottled into the essence of what you want to bring forth this time. In the songwriting process, how is that working for everybody? Does everybody just kind of do their part or?
It depends on the song, right? So there's instances where somebody will have a full idea and it'll be brought in, and we'll pretty much just kind of add our elements to it, add the compositional points of the band. And there's sometimes where that happens where, the lyrics and the melody will be the only thing that remain from that, and the instrumentation and arrangement via the producer can go off in pretty limitless amount of directions. And then there's sometimes where, I remember we had one day in the studio with a song wholly that wasn't necessarily even being considered for an opportunity to make the record, but everybody, we were just, we would get out of the studio after being there all day and we would come back to the house and we'd still pick up guitars and play around and stuff. And we were just really feeling the energy behind this thing we were working on, and the producer ran with it. And that ends up being a record that, makes the album. And it actually, I think it's the only time I've ever used an octaver in a studio setting that's on a record. Yeah. So, which is a fun little thing to incorporate live. But yeah, that little things like that happen. And I would say this record is it's very concise, I guess, in the sonic message and the overall storytelling. And it's not that it forced certain songs to be left out of the process. It's just some wouldn't exactly fit. And it's nice to be able to have those in our back pocket for future endeavors where, that doesn't mean it's not a great song. It's just for the concept of the record and who we are as people right now, it didn't fit. So that I would say that's probably the biggest change from the last record that was done, even though we did it with the same producer in the same recording studio with all the same kind of toys and goodies. And it's nice when you have an established relationship with somebody and there's a level of trust to get the best out of everybody.
Nice, nice. Well, and I got a chance to see Heartstop,
Yeah.
and I definitely get a New Orleans feel with the video itself.
Yeah.
And again, that concept of all of you in the same room, it seemed like it translated from wherever you were to record it to a same room in a small place somewhere in New Orleans, I'm guessing, because I'm kind
Yes.
of going this.
Yes.
I can, having been there, I can almost smell the wood inside the house
Yeah.
as I'm watching the video. I'm going, oh, okay, I feel like I've been there before.
Yeah.
Is the general theme is it more focused in the New Orleans sense than
I
usual? Or?
I wouldn't say that it's more focused. There's just when there's an earnestness that comes through, not necessarily simplicity, but a maturity level and approach in playing. It's serving the song
Mm-hmm.
where, I can attest to this. In your 20s, it's a lot about chops, and you spend all this time learning all these tools and tricks and all these things that you want to be able to utilize them all the time, which is great. It's a great thing to have, but to your average listener, they want to find something that can make them feel. And Victor Wooten has talked about this before in detail, where he says people they're not going to remember what you did; they're going to remember how you make them feel. And the whole point is to make the music as impactful as possible. And in terms of focus, I think we have a lot of individuals, but we always work best when we're really close together, whether that is, physically in a room, physically close together on stage, or, just having your brother's backs, because we've been doing this for almost 20 years. So you
Wow.
learn new things about everybody every day, and you get to a point where everybody's strong attributes and their sensibilities, and you try and uplift and have a tide rise all ships, so to speak.
Nice. I'm glad you mentioned Victor because he's definitely an expert at that whole concept because he has a capability that is just extraordinary.
Yes, but
But
I would say that his philosophy might actually dwarf his capability, which is, he's definitely tapped into some otherworldly stuff that has allowed his playing to become as proficient as it is. But I think just his advocacy and educational aspects as a musician are probably more important than what he's done creatively. I really think he'll be talking about him forever, but you can put one little blurb of the things he's said, and
yeah,
he's just a fantastic human, and we're lucky to be alive when he's playing and doing his thing.
absolutely. Well, and I will mention it's interesting that you mentioned that because of acts that we've covered him live. We covered him up in Portland. He was playing the Aladdin Theater.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I got a chance to look at the photos afterwards that I discovered the presence of a fair amount of orbs in the images when Victor's playing, and I'm kind of going, "What the
What's
heck?
going on here? Yeah.
What's
What's he
with
conjuring
this?"
up?
You know, and we were at your show at Revolution Hall. We could be at a whole bunch of other shows, and I didn't hardly see any orbs elsewhere in Portland. But when Victor was on stage, you know, what do I know? I mean, it's just like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm just seeing this, and there you go. Another prime example of that, somebody I always love to watch, is Lee Sklar.
of course.
And he has just this graceful smoothness of playing, of getting exactly what needs to be where. And I just was watching a video of him playing with Toto,
Uh-huh.
and it doesn't matter whether he's with James Taylor, whether he's with Phil Collins, whether he's with Toto. He has it's just a flow of almost effortless movement, but the notes are exactly where they need to be. So that's just amazing. But on to sound. I remember we talked a bunch about your Sadowski basses. How did you get your sound for this project?
Interestingly enough, I was able to, I had a wealth of bases at my disposal for this session. And interestingly enough, the bass that is most prominently featured on this is, I don't know the exact year, but it's a made in Japan Duck Dunn Fender P bass,
Wow.
which was like, I've been trying to find one, and if anybody listens to this and knows can point me in the direction, like they're hard to find. They're not out there. And it's like they did a short run. It's Japanese made, like I said, in like the 90s for maybe like a couple years. But just sonically what this record needs, yeah, it was passive bass, but with round wounds. Not particularly bright, but not particularly old. And I want to say we were about halfway through the recording process when I tried that on one thing, and the producer Rich was like, "We're going to go back and record this song, this song, this song on that bass." So that primarily was the bass. I'd say on 7 or 8 of the songs, for anything that required 5 string, I used my Sadowski 5,
Mhm.
my Verdine White 5, and outside of that, the model is escaping me, but I use this behemoth, like 1,000 pound Ibanez from the 80s, like this it almost like an Olympic, but it was
Wow.
a Ibanez bass from the 80s. From what has that walnut kind of look to it, just all wood. But from what I was told, it was the same bass that the Police records were done on,
Mm.
and I'm trying to think what else. Joshua Tree, these like not the exact instrument, but that model. So for some of the tones, we were going for that. And live to incorporate this now, I'm actually using a Mustang, a Fender Mustang to do it live. It's the short still sounds good. The flats are good. It's kind of like a set and forget, which is nice. And it's
Mhm.
incredibly light. So outside of, I think there's 3 songs on the record that are in D and B that are requiring that lower register. But other than that, I'm getting to play a Mustang
Fun.
every night for the most part, which is fun. I know it. Yeah, it's definitely better on my back.
Well, that heavy bass sounds like it's perfectly suited for a studio where you can
Oh
be on
yeah,
a stool or something.
I was joking that, 10 years ago, I would just pick that up and be like, I know this thing's going to sound good with how heavy it is, but
Yeah.
it's not conducive to play this stuff anymore. And, I feel like a decade ago, if somebody told me I'd be playing a chambered bass, I'd say absolutely not. But you'd be surprised how great things sound. The technology is there,
Yeah.
whether it's, in the amp sim world or the craftsmanship of the actual instruments being made. It's really fantastic what they're capable of doing. They have like aluminum bases now, and they
Oh,
have
yeah.
bases made from whatever you can think of. And a
Well,
really good set of pickups and some love put into the instrument can take it a long way.
absolutely. And the perpetual search for the ideal material or base is just going to
Yeah.
be ongoing. However, you go back to an old release, a Japanese made, it had a
Right?
life of its own, it had a journey of its own, and now it is what
Mhm.
it is, and they can't replicate it. They can't, it's just, it
No.
is what it is.
And, I approached Fender about making a bass to spec to do that. And then the last minute I thought it's not going to be the same. I need to actually find one of these. Cause yeah, literally I hit up somebody at the studio. I was like, hey Matt, I need you to get me the specs for this bass. Everything. Like if you got to put it in a plec machine and like just I want the exact measurements so I can give them to Fender to make the bass.
Yeah.
And then something just felt wrong about it. Something felt like this is a game. It's a search. And if I happen to see one of these in my travels, I'm just gonna have to get it because it's not like a 57p bass. This isn't something that's like gonna break the bank or anything.
Sure.
It just happened to be that specific bass really showed on this record, and it would be nice to find one out there and play it live. So if anybody has a lead on one, let me know. I'm telling you, usually you go on Reverb, you can find a lot of everything, but this is
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll
It,
see.
it it may be in some obscure pawn shop when you're on tour
It
or
has to.
something.
Yeah, that's I'm hoping of of the few remaining mom and pop music stores and pawn shops out there.
Yeah.
There's probably one and somebody has no idea what it is.
Absolutely. Well, and it reminds me, Andy Shishon that plays with Billy Joel.
Hmm.
He's totally a Federa guy.
Hmm.
They've been super tight for the longest time. He has a Fender P bass, and that thing is so grody and so worn that if
Hmm.
you close your eyes and run your hand along the neck, there's a small indentation your thumb finds where B is. So somebody has
Yeah, yeah,
played
yeah.
a lot of B
I,
blues or a lot of B
I
something
love that.
because it's you can be blind and find it effortlessly. And he won't clean it. He won't do anything to it. He's sure it's had beer spilled on it and cigarette smoke, and it's been probably propped in some corner and knocked over. All of those little things have brought it to the life it has right now, and it goes on stage with him. I've heard him play
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
You gotta go. You can't replicate that.
I feel like that, some people are in that quest for more gear and trying to expand. And overall, I'm trying to have less and less gear.
Totally.
There's a few things like I'd love a wall one day, which, they're only going to get more expensive as time goes on and
Oh,
on. And I'd love to find, these are things I'd have to find out in the wild. Like, the internet is too easily accessible just for me to go online and try and find something, or maybe I'd like a vintage grabber, like a late 70s, early 80s grabber at some point.
gotcha.
But these are wants, these aren't needs, you
Indeed.
know? Whereas like, oh, I needed a new bass for the road. And Fender just came out with this great American series of Mustang, and
Mhm.
it's I've been enjoying it. Our front of house has really been enjoying it, and it just really suits this record cycle.
Nice, nice.
So
And
yeah,
we should probably get out of the gear rabbit hole and
sure,
get back on track. I know you guys have tour plans coming from now all the way up into November, the US and Canada.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
we're doing a combination of headlining slots this summer, and we've been fortunate enough to be invited to go on the road with a group called the Red Clay Strays, who I think they just won I think Country Music Artist of the Year, and it's allowing us to play in a lot of rooms in various arenas that we haven't been. So we're getting to do Boston Garden, Madison Square Garden, pretty much an entire East Coast arena tour with them.
Nice.
And that leads up to us headlining our own cruise. It's called The Other Side of Paradise, and it's leaving out of Miami. And we will do 4 days with a stop included in the Bahamas. And it's featuring us and a bunch of our friends that we've made throughout the years. So yeah, it's a busy season for us, just picking up right now.
Nice, nice. And if people want to know where to find out what you're doing or where you're going to be, where's the best place for them to look?
Obviously, you can go on our website, therevivalists.com, but then, social. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the necessary evils, if you will.
Indeed, indeed. Well, George, we appreciate you taking time to chat with us out of your busy schedule. Very excited about Get It Honest. Even the cover makes me wonder who is the kid jumping off of the roof. I guess that's
Yeah.
a story for another time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking time, folks. You've seen him here on Bass Musician Magazine, George Gekas.
Thank you.